The vast military of Rome was perhaps the greatest war machine in the ancient world. Though a Roman army's general or emperor was almost always the most visible figure when victory in battle against the enemy was achieved, the well-oiled gears of Rome's legions were instead the revered, illustrious, and notorious Centurions. In this video in our Armies and Tactics series, we will examine this most iconic figure in the history of Rome, who the Centurio were, what equipment they used, and how they operated to craft the legions into antiquity's most rigorously disciplined military force. Shout out to Hearts of Iron 4 and Paradox Interactive for sponsoring this video. Hearts of Iron 4 is one of our favourite strategy games, and you can try it for free for a limited time ending on the 1st of March, so download the game by clicking the link in the description. This game offers a total strategic war on land, air and sea in a World War II setting. Assume control of any historical nation in a single campaign, or in both competitive and cooperative cross-platform multiplayer for up to 32 players. We've played quite a few Hearts of Iron 4 multiplayer campaigns, and let us assure you, they are intense. You'll experience the full history of World War II using the deep political, military and diplomatic systems. The new DLC called La Resistance adds even more content with secret agents, espionage missions, and new options for resisting or fomenting dissent. Support our channel and play Hearts of Iron 4 for free by clicking the link in the description. In the Republican period, the only qualifications necessary for a would-be Centurion were martial, bravery, strength, and leadership in battle. Though these were still core values, Centurions of the Principate increasingly had to come with other qualities that would make them a more well-rounded officer. A Centurion had to be, in almost all respects, an exemplary soldier, possessing a formidable stature, skill with weaponry, and strength with which to lead from the front, inspiring the men under his command. Moreover, the man was expected to be temperate and measured, vigilant, and ready to execute any order without questions. To his troops, the Centurion needed to be a notoriously strict disciplinarian when necessary, exercising and drilling his centurio regularly, ensuring that their uniforms and weaponry were in top shape for parade and the battleground. In the early imperial period, it was becoming more and more crucial for the Centurions to take on some administrative functions, and therefore literacy became a desirable skill. This increasing requirement meant that often Centurions were recruited more and more from the upper tier of society, making a class that combined military virtues and administrative know-how. With these qualities, a man became a Roman Centurion through two streams: promotion or recommendation. The former was a relatively simple process through which a 30-plus-year-old legionary with a long and spotless service record was promoted to the position outright. More fortunate, well-connected Romans could take the other road: direct appointment to the prestigious centurionate from civilian life through the intervention of an influential patron. The youngest known beneficiary of such a display of patronage was an 18-year-old equestrian candidate from a wealthy family. How happy said centurion's underlings must have been about serving under him can only be imagined. However, the fact that centurions were all at least formally appointed by the emperor may have shut down the discontent. The aspiring soldier was only officially invested with his centurion rank during a ceremony that took place on an auspicious military holiday. A platform would be constructed in the Principia of a legion's fortress or camp. In the presence of the finely clad soldiers, the soon-to-be Centurion was presented with a document containing an imperial edict of appointment and with his disciplinary vine staff. After their elevation, Centurions would gradually rise in seniority within their cohort, commanding centuries of troops with higher status, until they eventually led the most senior Centuria and therefore the entire cohort. The vast majority of Centurions did not advance beyond this point. However, those who did could be promoted even further to the rank of Primi Ordinis, exercising command within the legion's exalted first cohort and its double-strength centuries, and taking up staff officer roles. This kind of promotion initially took the form of the Hastatus Posterior rank of the first cohort, and then after 4 more promotions, an extremely well-connected, lucky, and competent soldier might rise to the rank of primus pilus. Through this position, a low-born centurion might have gained admission through hard military service to positions and privileges normally reserved for members of the ruling classes. When joining the Roman legions, a recruit would have aspired to this rank, a gateway to prosperity for those who had the skills to earn it. This was a matter of extremes that depended on the time period. In eras of peace and stability, many centurions could serve in the same rank without ever being promoted, while in times of instability and anarchy, they could even rise to the position of emperor, such as the former primus pilus Maximinus Thrax. Why were centurions so uniquely respected and regarded that they could climb the social ladder in these ways, and what duties did the rank encompass? The primary role of a centurion in the legionary structure was in the training of recruits in their centuria and their subsequent drilling, supervision, disciplining, and allocation of various duties such as foraging or watch. The centurion's duty was an absolute keystone of the Roman military, especially in the imperial period, because endless steeds could come from diverse and lowly origins, such as a family of cowherds or rough provincial farmers. Therefore, almost nothing a centurion could inflict was too brutal a disciplinary measure to forge these disparate and often unprepared individuals into professional soldiers capable of protecting the empire. It was this ruthless, drill sergeant-like duty, in addition to relatively common corruption through bribery, which led troops to frequently hate and fear their centurions. On the other hand, this feeling was almost always balanced out by the tendency of centurions to lead from the very front, often with fanatical bravery and terrible casualties. By doing that, they earned admiration, respect, and sometimes even deep devotion and loyalty from their men. They also took this lead from the front mentality into the grinding drudgery of regular life on campaign. If the troops were assigned to dig trenches or wells, construct camps or fortresses, centurions would directly supervise them and would often engage in the process with their soldiers, in addition to functioning as a keen-eyed overseer. Yet, this image of the centurion as an almost untouchable figure who solely dispensed justice needs to be tempered. Because they were entrusted with such power, men of the centurionate were also punished incredibly harshly if they were to fail in their duties, possibly even more so than the average soldier. A stark case of this occurred just before the imperial period began in 38 BC. During a battle in Hispania, a veteran primus pilus known as Vabilius lost his nerve and fled the field. When able, the local Roman governor made an example of the centurion by ordering him to be beaten to death with clubs by the men whose lives his cowardice had endangered. Disciplining troops was not the only matter with which centurions were burdened. The Roman centurion was an elite soldier, often employed for crucial commando and other intelligence-gathering missions in the field or at home. These could include scouting an enemy force, infiltrating hostile cities, acting as a trusted secret courier for a high noble, or assassinating figures who were too prominent to murder openly. In their administrative function, centurions were responsible for maintaining the logistical supply line for the army, supervising the collection of food, armor, weaponry, and other materiel from various contractors. Such figures of authority also had police and sometimes even judicial roles in keeping the peace. Important prisoners would be escorted by centurions, such as St. Paul, who was brought to the Antonia fortress in Jerusalem, protected from the violent mobs of the city by a centurion. Moreover, they commanded troops who were sent to hunt down bandits and brigands in the countryside, and oversaw the arrest and execution of petty criminals. In such situations, legal authority was delegated to the contingent centurio, who would come to a verdict. A couple of legal cases recorded on documents in Egypt also suggest that centurions exercised informal, but swift and effective, de facto authority on such minutiae as assaults, theft, tax collection, and even remedying and punishing criminal activities of other administrators. these duties of bringing the guilty to justice, carrying out searches, and providing protection for litigants who might otherwise face danger from high-status accused individuals, gave the local centurion a military authority which could countermand provincial government if required. In times of civil war, retaining the loyalty of legionary formations was really a matter of securing the loyalty of that particular legion's many centurions, especially the primi ordinis of the first cohort. It would often be the influence of these mid-level officers which might tip the balance as to which candidate the legion would grant its swords. The emperors of Rome and their advisors were fully aware of the influence centurions possessed, and the good ones were always keen to keep them happy. Augustus's friend, the brilliant general Agrippa, advised him to reserve legal cases involving the possibility of a centurion receiving severe punishment to his own personal judgment. Such figures, it was deemed, were too revered and important to be left to local trial when accused of a crime. For taking on all of these responsibilities and dangers, centurions were extremely well rewarded, materially and otherwise, compared to the vast majority of their comrades in the legions, and even those in the infamous Praetorian Guard. For their pay, it has been estimated that baseline centurions received about 15 times that of a regular legionary, and rather surprisingly, 5 times more than one of the notoriously money-obsessed Praetorian Guardsmen. Higher-tier centurionate officers, such as the primus pillars of a legion, earned a staggering 60 times the cash of a regular soldier, but regular pay wasn't the only income such men received. Much like their enlisted brethren, but to a far more extreme degree, centurions came to expect periodic financial bonuses called donatives on special occasions, such as the celebration of a great victory or the accession of a new emperor. It was necessary to give centurions vast amounts of money on these occasions because their loyalty was so valuable, and a generous gift would go a long way towards showing the centurion where his allegiance was best placed in a time of struggle. In their armour, weaponry, and clothing, centurions were like the peacocks of Roman military power. They naturally wanted to be well protected, like all soldiers do, but in addition, they sought to be a visible symbol of bravery and stalwartness in combat to their troops. To do that, and to perform their leadership role, they had to be recognizable in the fog of battle. A scared legionary in the violent baptism of fire of his first ever pitched battle might look to his left, see his quasi-godlike centurion fighting in the first rank with all his decorative regalia, and receive a new burst of morale. If he is still here, the most experienced man I know, the situation must be fine, such a soldier must have thought. First and most prominent in this recognition was a centurion's helmet, which was generally still the standard galea, but with a silvered insignia and a transverse crest or plume going from left to right. This contrasted the crest sometimes donned by legionaries, which went back to front instead. Though this might have been the standard loadout for a centurion's helmet, it did vary based on the man and the location. Some centurions detailed on Trajan's column wore the imperial Gallic or Italic style helmets without any crest, and in the eastern provinces it was frequently more common to wear Hellenic style helmets such as the Attic design. On their legs, centurions were almost always clad in metal greaves, with knee protectors which were emblazoned with details, such as, in an example we know of, Greek typology and symbolism. A military cloak, probably coloured medium blue, also made the centurion stick out like a sore thumb on the battlefield, and also in civilian life. Later in the empire, these cloaks were lavishly decorated with fine embroidery, symbols, and gilded fringes to show wealth or status. Lastly, we cannot go through a video on the Roman centurion without at least mentioning the item which was essentially synonymous with them, the vitis, a staff or cudgel of vinewood, the immortal mark of a centurion's power and authority which remained while many things around the empire changed. When speaking of centurions, we naturally gravitate towards the most notable eras of Roman history in our popular culture: Caesar's years up until around the death of Commodus, the Pax Romana, and its immediate predecessor age, the late Republic. Yet, we shouldn't let this trend keep us away from discussing how the role of the Centurion evolved, as many other things did so drastically in the late Roman Empire. It is this time of progression, change and calamity that we shall discuss now. The reforms of Diocletian and Constantine, discussed in another one of our videos, transformed the Roman military and consequently the position of a centurion. It survived, but was incorporated as just one part of the new complex army structure of the late Empire. Old-style Roman legions of the Republic and Principate did survive and retained their traditional hierarchies until the 7th century, the 100-man centuriae and their centurion along with them, but they were no longer the core military force of the Roman Empire. New styles of unit were created to respond to the myriad of issues facing the late Empire, such as comitatenses, scholae, auxilia palatina, and others. Therefore, the formal role of a centurion and their importance slowly began to fade. We can still see the lasting influence and prestige of the position even after Constantine's time. When that great emperor split the Roman realm between his sons, he also assigned a personal retinue of infantry to each of them. In these units, and the newly raised Imperial Scholae Palatinae Guard, the commander of 200 men was the Ducenarius, while the leader of 100 was now known as the Centenarius. This seems to have been the case in units as different as the Scholae, Comitatus contingents of the regional duchies, and in elite cavalry forces like the Empire's Cataphractarii heavy cavalry and elite Sagittarius horse archers. Living in the late 4th century, Hieronymus leaves us records of the rank hierarchy of a cavalry contingent, which goes as follows from bottom to top: Biarchus, Centenarius, Ducenarius, Senator, and Tribunus. It is clear therefore that, by the turn of the 5th century, the previously august and high-status centurion was just the title of a regular officer who just happened to command 100 men. The pragmatist, quasi-divine rulers of Rome in the late period seem to have seen no place for men with a ceremonial authority which outdated even that of the emperors. While the title survived in the East following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, all of the meaning and symbolism of the old centurion had been stripped away, with only the memory of old glories spurring the use of their name. Our series on the Roman armies will continue all the way to 1453, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell button. We would like to express our gratitude to our Patreon supporters and channel members who make the creation of our videos possible. Now you can also support us by buying our merchandise via the link in the description. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.